Daughter of a King by Rachel Ann Nunes. Kate was a princess who lived in a tiny house in a very small village. She didn't look like a princess. Her dark hair tangled in the wind, and she had dirt on her cheeks from playing in the meadow with her friends. Sometimes, when she played in the meadow, her dress caught on a stick and ripped. Then her mother would have to sew on a patch from the box of rags under her bed. Kate's dress had many patches. But Kate was still a princess. After a long day of work in their potato fields, her parents would sit on the porch and tell her about the faraway Crystal Palace where she once had lived. In her mind, she could almost see the shiny palace. Was it beautiful, she asked? Her mother had a dreamy look in her eyes. I don't remember it well, but I think it must be the most beautiful place in the whole world. Why did the king send me here to live with you? So that you could learn and grow, replied her mother. And can I return? Asked Kate. If she lived in the Crystal Palace, she could wear long purple robes made of velvet, and there would always be plenty to eat, even if the potato crop failed. Her father smiled, but his face was serious. Yes, you are a princess, and you will be a great queen one day, but first you must learn to always act like a princess. Kate tried to remember to act like a princess. She practiced being friendly and polite. Each day she worked hard in the fields, pulling weeds and watering plants. She learned to patch her own dress. One day in the village streets her friends argued over a game. I won't fight, Kate said. I'm a princess, and my father the king wouldn't be pleased. The children shook their heads and rolled their eyes. You aren't a princess, taunted Haman the baker's son, and your father's not a king. You're just a dirty old farmer's daughter. He's right, said Delilah, whose father owned the inn. I never saw a princess before, but I know you aren't one. Kate felt terrible. Being a princess didn't seem so wonderful when the children made fun of her. But then Alexandria, the blacksmith's daughter, said softly in her ear, How do you know you're the king's daughter? Kate also lowered her voice so the others wouldn't hear her. My parents told me. And did they tell you about the Crystal Palace? Alexandria's face glowed with excitement. Kate laughed. Oh, yes, and I can't wait to go there. For the rest of the day, Kate played with Alexandria. It was easy to be a princess when Alexandria knew how to act like one, too. That night, Kate said to her parents, Alexandria is a princess, too. Yes, her mother answered. All children are princes and princesses. The king loves them, and he has offered everyone a place with him in the Crystal Palace. But the others don't know, said Kate. Kate's father looked sad. Some of their parents have forgotten where we came from, and sometimes, even if they remember, they don't teach their children. Why? Asked Kate. Because it's easier to forget, her father said. Being a prince or princess can be hard work. Kate hugged her parents. I'm so glad you remembered. I love being a princess. Her father was right. Sometimes it was hard to act like a princess. When the merchant's children teased her about her patched dress, Kate said mean words back to them. When she did that, the vision of the Crystal Palace vanished from her mind. Then one afternoon, when no one was watching, the village children stole Widow Shoemaker's fresh-baked pies that were cooling in the window-sill. Kate went along because she was hungry, and everyone in the village knew that Widow Shoemaker made the most delicious blueberry pies. Then Kate did another unprincess-like thing. She lied about taking the pie. I'm glad you didn't steal it, her mother said. There's only one thing worse for a princess than stealing, and that's lying. Kate burst into tears and told her parents the truth. Will the king still let me return to the palace? You are a princess, Kate, her father replied, and I think he will always welcome you home if you're ready to act like one. Kate bowed her head. I know what I have to do. She wiped her tears and climbed the hill to the blueberry bushes. She spent hours picking berries. Her hands turned blue from the juice, and she had long red scratches on her arms from the thorns. Finally, she hurried home to make a pie. Her pie didn't look as good as Widow Shoemaker's, but it was the very best Kate could do. She took the pie to the old lady. Her hand shook. I'm sorry, she said in a small voice. Widow Shoemaker put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Thank you, dear child. I see you are beginning to remember not only the princess you are, but the queen you will become one day." Widow Shoemaker was wrinkled and gray, but Kate knew the old lady was a princess too, because she acted like one. "Soon I'll make my journey to the Crystal Palace," Widow Shoemaker told Kate with a smile. "Michael, my grandson, is coming from the next village to say goodbye. Will you stay and have pie with us tonight?" So Kate ate blueberry pie with Widow Shoemaker and her grandson. Then she and Michael hugged his grandmother goodbye. In the weeks after Widow Shoemaker left the village, Kate felt a little sad, but sometimes when she sat on the hill overlooking the village, she imagined the old lady at the palace dressed in beautiful robes and taking walks with her husband. Kate knew she was happy. That made Kate happy too, and she remembered that someday she would also return to the Crystal Palace. What would it be like? She could hardly wait. Before long, Michael moved to the village and lived in his grandmother's house. He began learning to make shoes that his grandfather had done. Kate and Michael spent many hours together talking about the Crystal Palace. They decided that when it was time, they would search for the palace together. The years passed slowly and happily. Kate longed to go to the palace of the king, but she remembered that she was still a princess, no matter where she lived. She wanted to make the king proud of her every day. Eventually, Kate and Michael were married and blessed with a baby boy to raise. They named him Nathan. "We must teach him that he, too, is a prince," Kate said. "It is up to us to remember and to help our son remember." Kate and Michael lived in the small village for many years. They worked hard, helped their friends, and were kind to strangers. They were very happy. Kate often thought of the Crystal Palace. Sometimes she felt very close to the king, even though she couldn't see him. She knew he loved her. Then Kate's parents prepared to make their journey to the Crystal Palace. "I want to go with you," Kate said with longing. "Not yet," answered her mother. "Nathan still needs you. But your time will come. We'll wait for you there. Please don't ever forget that you are a princess." They left on their journey, and Kate missed them so much her heart wanted to break. During the sad times, Kate almost forgot she was a princess. She almost stopped believing in the Crystal Palace. "Don't give up," Michael said as he helped her with her work. "The Crystal Palace is real. You are a princess, a daughter of a king, and he loves you." Kate tried to be strong. Sometimes when Michael had a hard day in his shop, Kate would have to remind him about the palace. "I know it isn't easy," she would say, "but it will be worth it in the end. The king is waiting there for us." When their son was all grown up with a family of his own, Kate and Michael knew it was finally time to find the Crystal Palace. Kate hugged Nathan with all her strength. "Please, please remember who you are," she told him. "I will, Mother. I know I'm a prince, and I will act like one. And I will help my children remember too." His words made Kate happy. In their search for the palace, Kate and Michael met many people. One wrinkled old man named Bartimaeus had no food. "Share ours," Michael offered. "But you won't have enough," protested Bartimaeus. Kate pressed the bread and cheese into his hands. "We will find a way." "Then please let me share with you my greatest treasure," Bartimaeus said. "For many years I have searched for the palace, and at last I have learned of a path through the mountains. This path was made by the king's oldest son. It is narrow and long and steep, but it is the only path that leads to the palace and the king." Michael shook the old man's hand. "Thank you. Today we have given you food, but you have given us a way home." Kate and Michael followed the new path. Often they went for days without food. Sometimes they found a town where they could work for a loaf of bread and a place to sleep. In the long journey between towns, they occasionally met new people, new friends who were willing to share a meal and the warmth of a fire. With each traveler, Kate and Michael walked about the Crystal Palace. They showed their new friends the path made by the king's oldest son. One day the path wound steeply up the mountain. Cold seeped into their fingers and toes and into their hearts. "I can't make it," Kate cried. "It's too steep." "I'll carry you," Michael said. The next day Michael's feet were too sore to walk, and Kate had to help him along as best she could. She kept a vision of the Crystal Palace in her mind to warm her. Would they ever find it? After the coldest, darkest night, the yellow sun rose over the mountain. They were so tired, but they kept walking. At last they saw the Crystal Palace in the distance. "Look, it is so beautiful," Kate explained. Her heart sang with happiness. Michael smiled. "It is more beautiful than anything I've ever seen." Now their legs grew stronger with every step. The sun shone brilliantly over the palace, and the whole world was full of light. But Kate faltered at the path to the gates, which glistened in the sun like diamonds. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "What if I don't belong? All of my life I've waited to come here. But what if the king doesn't know me? It has been so long, and I am so worn and dirty. I don't feel like the daughter of a king." "He will know you, Kate." Michael took her hand in his. "He will know you by what's inside your heart. I'm sure of it. Come, we'll go together." A trumpet sounded and the gate swung inward. A man came to meet them, holding out his arms. Kate stared up into the king's glowing, familiar face. "Welcome home, my daughter and my son," the king said, tears of gladness glimmering in his eyes. "I am so happy to see you again." "You knew we'd come?" asked Kate. "I sent many to help you find the way," he said, "but always the choice was yours." Kate wanted to fall into his open arms, but she couldn't. What about her stained and ragged dress? What about her tangled hair and sunburned face? Surely